everybody, Earl at thelogbook.com, back for more Voyages of Shelf Discovery, and we're diving into the pin collection today. We're actually kind of backtracking to cover some stuff that I haven't covered on here, but I've had it for a while, and a couple of things that I've had for a while but just haven't opened because of the whole year of thinking I was going to have to move thing that I had going on. The first thing we're looking at, everything we're looking at today is from the FanSets Star Trek collection. FanSets being kind of the current licensee that makes Star Trek pins of various kinds. A lot of what they do is specific characters, but my favorite FanSets bits, you could use them for cosplay. They're great for that. And what we're starting with here is the set of memorial pins from Season 1 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Now, you may remember this episode where we had the Gorn come back. And it was basically Starfleet Memorial Day. Future Memorial Day, if you will. And most members of the crew had one of these round little pins on commemorating a ship that they had served on in the past that has been lost in the line of duty, or a ship that they knew somebody on who was lost, and so on. And no sooner had that episode rolled out than FanSets dropped this very nice, very classy presentation here. Little set of pins on us. Now these are all pinned back. These are, these have a couple of pins on each one that will pierce your clothing, and then you put the pin back on them. So these are not magnets like some of their comm badges and deltas are, which we'll get back to that later. But first off, I apologize for kind of the flickery effect. It's the middle of summer here, and so I had the ceiling fan going and didn't even think of the effect of that being on with the lighting until I got into editing with this, and it was like, ooh. So hopefully everyone can tolerate that a little bit. Here we have the cover open. You can see some of the various ships that are memorialized. All of these were seen in the episode, worn by various characters, including the Discovery. I think that's the really interesting one because, of course, in Strange New Worlds, the USS Discovery is considered officially lost by Starfleet. And of course it isn't really. It jumped forward in time, but they had to kind of cover that up a bit. And so it everyone gets to act like, oh yes, that ship was lost. Getting kind of a close-up on these, really very nicely done with the detail. And this was not a cheap set to start out, and I was not able to pick this up for a while. They did eventually put it through a couple of price drops until, I don't know if it finally sold out or not, but the set did undergo a price drop or two, and I was able to pick it up later. I was very happy that they still had it in stock. Yeah, my fear was it was going to just instantly sell out. And that apparently was not the case. Now, it's kind of weird. I had to go back and look through some old Starlog issues to look something up, because this set scratches a very specific, very long-standing itch with me. Follow me down memory lane, if you will. You may remember this full-page ad frequently appeared in Starlog magazine around 1989 because you have Star Trek V, The Final Frontier stuff there. You remember this? The Star Trek branch pins that Starlog advertised? And there were about a dozen of those, just like there's a dozen of these memorial pins. Man, way back when, for no rational reason that I can really give you, I really wanted that set of pins out of Starlog. But at the time, $8 a pop, there was no way I could get them. You know, I was still in high school and I was working part-time radio at the time, so I just couldn't. You know, it was the beginning of me being very well acquainted with not being able to throw money at something that I wanted, and just learning to live with that. It's kind of funny. I realized after I got this set of pins that this kind of scratches that itch. It's kind of a similar thing with the UFP logo in the middle. The difference is these were actually seen on screen. The set of pins that Starlog was hawking around 1989 or so, those never appeared on screen. They were not part of anyone's uniform. They were not official. They were just a cool design that someone came up with, and I wanted the whole set, never got them. And, you know, I feel like this finally scratched that itch. So I love this set. I'm glad they did it. I was kind of surprised that it didn't just immediately get snatched up. But, you know, it was kind of pricey at the time, so I totally understand. A couple of other FanSets items we've got here. Got some of their magnetic ComBadge deltas. We've got the Next Gen and the Voyager models. The Next Gen ComBadge is still front and center on the FanSets website, with good reason, because that is probably the single most demanded item in their inventory ever, very likely. Two really strong magnets hold the thing together, so you can put that on anything. Like, you know, I could take this right now and there, it's on. It's a really heavy piece, but it's the correct size, and most importantly to me, and we'll get into this in a moment, it has the correct relief. There have been so many pins of the Next Gen ComBadge down through the years that have not gotten the relief right. You know, the depth of it, really. And they've just put it, you know, flat oval, flat delta, and it's been kind of disappointing because the original Lincoln Enterprises deltas that you could get that were pinbacks back in late 87, early 88 when I got mine, and I'll show you that shortly, were not like that. Okay, here we have the Voyager delta. Oh, they actually wrapped this one, surprise. So give me a couple of minutes here on the footage to figure out how to open that, where the opening is to access that. The Voyager Delta, also very nice. There have been a lot of very flat iterations of that as a pin, and similar to the Next Gen Delta, the FanSets Voyager Delta, or DS9, or First Contact Delta, whatever you want to call it, remembers that these were not completely flat. There was relief. There was, you know, altitude to various features of the pin, and they got that right. I think part of the reason the Voyager slash First Contact slash DS9 Season 4 onward pins came about was because they were less tricky to manufacture for the studio as props than the Next Gen badges were. Again, two very strong magnets. Voyager Delta is not going anywhere once you put that on. It's not as heavy as the Next Gen Delta, but both of them very nice. Now, yeah, I was talking about the relief, the depth on the next gen badge. You've got a lot of badges out. You've got a lot of pins of the next gen badge out there that are completely flat. This is not one of them. The one on the left, that is my oldest Star Trek pin right there, or one of the oldest. That is from Lincoln Enterprises, circa 1987, back when Next Gen was brand new on the air. And let me tell you, kids, I wore the heck out of that thing, in case you can't tell. It is very worn. It's seen a lot of action. I would wear that on a backpack or on a shirt or on a jacket. I would wear that like to school. Now I was in high school when Next Gen started, and this was back in the days when the culture clash was still nerds versus jocks. You know, these days you have culture clashes of comic book people versus Star Trek people versus Star Wars people versus Doctor Who people. Assuming that you don't like more than one, I like all of the above. I am a general purpose nerd. I love all of it. I love all of it. I've never understood really drawing lines in the sand, but you don't really have the nerd versus jock culture clash now like you used to. Man, that thing on the left, I would wear that on a jacket to school, and I would get my backside handed to me because I had just announced to the world, hey, I am... I wasn't a 98-pound weakling. I was a 198-pound weakling. And, got my backside handed to me quite a bit. But, and that thing on the left, that means a lot to me because high school was not a good time. It was not a good time for me at home. Yeah, it wasn't really a great time for me at school either, though a lot of that was my fault because I was responding inappropriately to the stuff going on at home instead of just coming out and asking for help. Long story. Won't go into it now. But, yeah, that comm badge on the left, that was kind of my, that's kind of my lodestar. That was kind of my reminder that was always there, very tangible, sort of, okay, if everyone in my home life is failing me right now, well, what would Captain Picard do? That thought process kept me out of a heap of trouble back when I was between the ages of 14 and 18. And so that thing on the left, that is an absolute treasure to me. The one on the right, very nicely done. That is the best comm badge you have been able to get since that one on the left was on the market. So I highly recommend the FanSets comm badges to you without reservation. By the way, if you're wondering, okay, if you're not wearing these all the time, what do you do with them? Well, there have been, at various times, people have licensed old Gold Key Star Trek comic covers and put them on metal signs. The one on the left I got from Master Replicas. It's a recent one. The one on the right was the two on the right you see there in the wide shot. I believe those were a gift to me from my friend when I was redecorating my house. When it became just me and occasionally my kids. And I think those were from Hobby Lobby. I think they were from a company called Open Road Brands, if I remember correctly. But these metal signs, and you've got these magnetic deltas. Those metal signs are fantastic for displaying these dudes. Because guess what? They're magnetic. Both parts of them stick to that sign like absolute glue. And then you just hang the sign up somewhere. Which, this is... By the way, these things hanging up like that are a celebration of me finally getting a lease that allows me to hang stuff on the walls after several years of not being able to. a whole other long story there. So, yeah, those signs are adorned with the FanSets magnets I've collected down through the years. So you've got the Next Gen Delta, you've got the Future Imperfect Delta, you've got the Strange New Worlds and Prodigy and Discovery Deltas, and one of my favorites, the big goofy looking one from the animated series. I love that. I love that that is a thing. The moment they rolled that out, that was like day one purchase for me because I love the animated series. So there you have it, a tale of many fansets pins, including this one, which is a very nice compliment to that pin on the left you see there. That I don't know, I might or might not be able to honestly claim that that one on the left may have saved my life once upon a time. And so it is very nice to have a very shiny new one.